I was excited to move to Hartford, Connecticut at the beginning of this millennium, in large part because I knew that there was a Unitarian Universalist congregation close to where I was going to live. I'd learned about Unitarian Universalism while I was living in California, but since I didn't drive at the time, the closest UU congregation was too far away for me to go on Sunday mornings. But in Hartford, I would be able to ride my bike or even walk. So I stopped by one day to get some information, and then I looked forward to my first Sunday morning there. I remember it for a few reasons. One was that it was Easter Sunday, and it was a very different take on the Bible stories from anything I'd heard growing up. Another reason I remember it was that I was reading the literature in the back of the pew and found myself thoroughly perplexed by a question that asked me if I was interested in ministry. Actually, it was asking me if I was interested in small group ministry, what we call fellowship circles, but I didn't know what that meant. Nevertheless, it stopped me cold and was perhaps the first small clue of my vocation. A third reason I remember that first Sunday at the UU congregation in Hartford is that nobody talked to me until after the service, after coffee hour, in fact, when I was about to leave. Oh, I'm sure people greeted me when I first came into the building, and certainly someone handed me an order of service, and I must have been given directions to the social hall downstairs, but nobody really talked to me. And I wasn't good at just going up to somebody I didn't know, starting a conversation. So I'm looking at the posters on the walls. I was just about to leave, not sure if I wanted to come back again or not, when someone came up to me. An elderly woman had noticed that I was carrying a Sierra Club backpack. And she commented on it and then introduced herself and then asked me my name when her daughter, who turned out to be someone in the congregation's leadership, came over as well, though her main reason for doing so seemed to be to apologize for her mother bothering me. I said there was no bother at all. And in fact, her mother had been the first person to talk to me the whole morning. Years later, I learned that I had experienced what's called New England welcome. In written form, it says, "We sincerely welcome you into our church so long as you know how to get here and know what to do and can find your way around. We'll be happy to talk to you if you come up to us, and otherwise we'll leave you alone." Of course, that attitude isn't limited to New England. Obviously, I did go back to that congregation again, and because of that, I became a member, and because of that, I started seminary classes, and because of that, I became a minister, and because of that, I am here today. All because one person came up to me and wanted to talk with me. It's not unusual for a church or other religious community to say they welcome everyone. It would certainly be weird to see "all are not welcome" on a sign. In fact, I think there's a social obligation to claim that all are welcome, even if it turns out that this doesn't really extend to gay people or unwed mothers or people with addictions or people without college degrees. Or perhaps there's no categorical discrimination as such, but if you don't dress the right way or listen to the right radio station or shop at the right supermarkets, well, sooner or later you realize you don't really feel welcome at all. Unitarian Universalist congregations are not unique in declaring that we welcome everyone. We're also not unique in having a theology that is genuinely inclusive. We're not the only progressive religion. We're not even unique in acknowledging, if we're being honest, that we don't always live up to that theology, that we're not as inclusive as we'd like to be, that sometimes we inflict the New England welcome on innocent people. Our goal isn't to be unique, though. That's just another way of thinking we can define ourselves by what we are not. No, what matters is that we try to be better, that we make an effort to live up to our own theology, that we're willing to take an unflinching look at what we do, and then we want to improve ourselves. We say something like that on Sunday mornings, at least as long as I've been here. It's been part of what our lay leader says before and during the pandemic, and you heard it from Anne this morning. All those of goodwill are welcome to join with us in our individual and collective search for truth and meaning in a community where we commit ourselves daily to honoring the inherent worth and dignity of every person. Now, admittedly, the first part of that is in the passive voice. All those of goodwill are welcome to join with us. It really puts the onus for being welcomed on the other people who want to join us, not on us to be welcoming of them. But the second part fixes that by saying that we commit ourselves daily to honoring the inherent worth and dignity of each person. Not that we're going to be perfect at honoring each person's inherent worth and dignity, but that we commit ourselves to the honoring, that we're going to try. Our new covenant goes further, putting this in the active voice and making it more direct. We covenant to welcome everyone of goodwill. This is our intention to be welcoming, to actively invite people into our community, and it puts the onus on us rather than requiring newcomers to earn it. And so we have greeters, not just to say hello to people and to wave them through, but to actually engage newcomers and talk to them. And we have name badges, whether engraved or printed or stick-on, to help us learn one another's names. And we have a culture of pretty much everyone, whether they're on duty as greeters or not, talking to newcomers and helping them to feel at home. Yes, I know that talking to people they don't know isn't everyone's cup of tea. I've had to work on being better at it myself. It does help that with our limited and often crowded space for so many years, we have essentially selected for extroverts. While that's great for the purposes of welcoming people, it does mean that we need to be really intentional about maintaining and even growing our culture of welcoming once we've moved to a larger space. Now, there's another part to our covenant, which has also been part of what we say on Sunday mornings. We don't say we covenant to welcome everyone. We covenant to welcome everyone of goodwill. Of course, when it comes to somebody new, we start by assuming that they are of goodwill. Aside from the fact that we don't know anything about them until we get to know them, this is how we practice universalism. This is how we honor each person's inherent worth and dignity. This is how we connect in love. We start from a place of welcome because regardless of how someone appears to us, we believe that they deserve to be welcomed. However, we also need to recognize the truth that not every relationship works out for a variety of reasons, and in spite of how much we might want it to work out. For instance, thanks to the internet and social media, anybody who visits us for the first time one Sunday morning already has some idea of who we are. They've read about us online. They've seen some pictures, maybe watched some videos. Perhaps they lurked on Zoom. But then they come in person and discover a whole lot more about who we are. For most people, that just confirms that they made the right decision. For some others, though, they discover something in our theology or in our justice efforts or whatever it might be, and they realize that this isn't the place for them after all. And it's good that they come to that conclusion sooner rather than later. And it's a big reason why you don't take brand new people, no matter how enthusiastic they seem, and elect them to the board. Sometimes, though, very rarely, thankfully, it doesn't end so amicably. And I want to stress that although our talk of welcoming includes the phrase goodwill, the problem isn't how to respond to ill will. If someone shows up who evidently means us harm, we know what to do. No, the problem is that there is a limit to our capacity to help someone who is struggling with, say, severe addiction or trauma, and it causes them to behave in ways that are detrimental to the health of the community. As much as we might truly, genuinely, earnestly want this congregation to be fully supportive and nurturing and healing for every person who finds us, there will be times when we fail to be, in the sense that we simply cannot be as supportive and nurturing and healing as they need us to be. I'm not a therapist, and professional ethics limits what I can do in terms of counseling. We don't have any licensed clinical social workers on staff. I don't know of any church actually that does. We would inevitably do more harm than good by trying to give people what they need when we are incapable of giving them what they need. Nobody feels good about that, but the fact is that there are limits to how welcoming we can be. Not because somebody doesn't deserve to be welcomed. We believe that everybody deserves to be welcomed, but because there are limits to our skills and abilities, no matter how much we might wish that there weren't. And so we covenant to welcome everyone of goodwill. Would it be better to say that we welcome everyone, period? Yes, of course, but it wouldn't be honest. It wouldn't be realistic. We promise to treat everyone with respect, though, with kindness. The next few parts of our covenant name some ways we intend to do that, and we'll talk about those next month. As much as it might be preferable to hear me say that being welcoming is easy, and it's just about being nice to people, and everything always works out fine, the fact is that being in relationship is hard work, and there are no simple answers. It's no accident that there are so few places in our society where people can truly be in community with one another, where we can get to know one another deeply. That's the sort of place that we want to be. And it starts with welcoming one another because we believe that everyone deserves to be welcomed. I'm going to ask you some wondering questions now, and I'll give you a little time after each to reflect. Marcy, if you'd please put the questions on the screen as I read them. I wonder when you have felt truly welcomed. I wonder how you see yourself as part of this community. I wonder how you see others as part of this community. I wonder what you can do to be welcoming here. In the story that Anne told us earlier, the monks started to treat one another more kindly and more fairly when they began to appreciate the good in one another. In their terms, as prompted by the wisdom of the traveling rabbi, the monks realized they could sometimes see the Messiah in one another's faces. They could sometimes hear the Messiah in one another's voices. Now, Unitarian Universalism doesn't have a messianic theology, though individual UUs might have such beliefs. Or they might believe that there is divinity to be found in every person. Or they might believe that everyone shares in the same universal soul. Or they might believe that God's love applies to everybody without exception. That's pretty much what pre-UU Universalism was. The belief that every soul goes to heaven because God loves every person too much to send them to hell. In our humanistic Unitarian Universalism, that became, as most UUs put it, a belief in the inherent worth and dignity of each person. Now, you could believe in any of those different things, but you would still end up treating other people more kindly and more fairly when you can appreciate the good in them. And when it's someone we don't know, we start by assuming the good in them, especially when it's someone we don't know, because this is how we practice universalism. This is how we honor each person's inherent worth and dignity. This is how we connect in love. We start from a place of welcome because regardless of how someone appears to us, we believe that they deserve to be welcomed. There's a well-known saying, which unlike so many others, does actually come from the Bible. In this case, the letter to the Hebrews. Do not neglect to show hospitality to strangers, for thereby some have entertained angels unaware. On the other hand, we shouldn't just welcome people because they might turn out to be powerful cosmic beings, especially if you know how angels are actually described in the Bible. We should welcome people because they are people, and so are we. And so we covenant to welcome everyone of goodwill. You can help bring this part of our covenant to life with something as simple as wearing your name badge. It really does help people to feel welcomed and less anxious about being in a new place if they can see our names. Or you could become a greeter, saying hello to people as they come into the building on Sunday mornings, helping new people know where they're going, particularly if they have children, and taking a little time to get to know newcomers. If you have a friendly smile and you're good at talking to people, please consider becoming a greeter one Sunday a month. You can find out more from me or the membership committee. Or you could keep an eye open for people at other times, for new people at other times, before or after the service, or even during the service, and make it a point to talk to them, to introduce yourself, to ask them their name. It might not seem like much to you, but it could literally change the course of someone's life. May it be so.